music business has been a disaster over the past decade, but one artist has been able to amass a fortune worth up to $500 million, and it's not from iTunes downloads. The singer, of course, is Shawn Corey Carter, also known as Jay-Z, and in Empire State of Mind, how Jay-Z went from street corner to corner office just out from Portfolio, Forbes writer Zach O'Malley Greenberg describes how he evolved from a small-time street hustler into a mogul. Zach, welcome to our bling-free studios here in Midtown.
Well, thanks so much for having me on.
So in 2010, you write that Jay-Z earned $63 million, more than all but 7 CEOs. Where does his income come from?
Well, last year it came primarily from touring. Touring is that one part of the music business that's still rocking pretty hard, at least for the top acts. Jay-Z grosses over $1 million a show. He takes home about a third of that. So on the touring front, it's kind of how much time does he want to spend? How much money does he want to make?
Your book, again, it's a business story, not a music story. And there are a lot of talented rappers out there. Not all of them do well in business over the long term. What were some of his successes early on in terms of getting into the business of music?
Well, I think the first thing that Jay-Z did was he started an independent company, Rockefeller Records, to distribute his first album, or rather to launch his first album, and they brought in another distributor. And sort of that arrangement, the financial arrangement, resulted in him getting a lot more money than he would have otherwise.
You write that he has a unique ability to set trends and profit from them almost to an astronomical level. The first one that he branched out to for music was apparel.
That's right. In 1999, he and business partner Damon Dash founded Rocawear. And the reason that they did it was because Jay-Z had been rapping about another brand called Iceberg, and as soon as he did that, sales skyrocketed. So, being a shrewd businessman, he and his partner Damon Dash went to Iceberg and said, "Hey, can we get an endorsement deal here? We're doing wonders for your brand." And the executive said, "No, thanks." So Jay-Z said, "Well, if I'm not going to profit from it, I don't want to be involved. I'm going to start my own."
And so 12 years later, this is still an independent, profitable company that he owns?
Well, actually, he sold the rights to it back in 2008 for $204 million, and obviously didn't keep all of that. There were other partners involved. There were taxes, but he certainly got a very, very hefty payday.
Okay. So what else? He's got sneakers with Reebok?
That's right. He has the S. Carter sneakers with Reebok. He's got a 40/40 nightclub chain. He's got an interest in the Spotted Pig, a gastropub in New York. He's got a stake in the New Jersey Nets.
And that's one thing I wanted to ask you about, because getting ownership of a sports franchise is very difficult for anybody to do. As I understand, he sort of got dealt in on ownership of the New Jersey Nets for not all that much of a financial contribution. How did that come about?
Well, that's right. He got a big discount to associate himself with the Nets, and I think he knew going into it kind of what he brought to the brand of the Nets, and he knew that the Nets had always been kind of the second-tier team in New York, and so he kind of worked his way into getting a nice discount on his stake.
Part of this, the Nets are trying to build a new complex in Brooklyn, which is where he was from.
That's right. Jay-Z's a famous Brooklyn native son, and I think that the owners anticipated a lot of opposition in terms of building the stadium, some of the legal hurdles, and having somebody on board like Jay-Z, has really helped them, I think, from a PR standpoint.
And so, what percentage stake does he have, and how much is that worth?
Well, it depends who you ask, but in my research, the stake that he has is between 1% and 2%. It's worth between $4 and $6 million. But the big kicker here is that he didn't pay full freight for it. Like many celebrities who get involved in sports teams, there was sort of a sweetheart discount to get his name involved.
Now, this book is overwhelmingly a story of success, but there have been plenty of failures along the way. He's had some misadventures with car companies. What are some of the notable failures he's had as a business person?
Well, that's right. You mentioned the car company. There was a Jay-Z Jeep that was slated to go into production in the mid-2000s, but the deal fell apart at the last minute. Not necessarily through any fault of Jay-Z's own. It was more of a restructuring kind of thing going on at Chrysler, and some management changes, and somebody decided to kill the project. But Jay-Z, made a very strong effort to not showcase the fact that this had happened. And I think in many ways it was to burnish his victorious image.
So you think he's 41 or 42 now? You think he will be touring and rapping into his 50s and 60s?
Maybe not so actively, maybe not like the Stones or something, but I think he's the sort of person who, once he and Beyonce start a family, I think he'll probably fade back a little bit deliberately. But I think if you wanted to tour all the time, like the Stones do, I think you could most certainly do something like that.
Now, one of the telling anecdotes in your book is toward the beginning when you're talking about how he and his team really didn't give you much, if any, cooperation at all. And it wasn't simply for image reasons. There seemed to be a business reason for it.
Sure. Well, when I first got the book deal, I went straight to his manager. Well, Jay-Z calls him his consigliere because nobody manages Jay-Z. I told him the deal. I said, I have this book deal from Penguin Portfolio, and it's going to be a business book about Jay-Z. We're going to put him up on this pantheon with Warren Buffett and Steve Jobs, and I'd like to be a fly on the wall in some meetings and observe and interview him. And I thought it was a slam dunk, but what he said was, what's in it for us? And at the time I was puzzled, but in hindsight it makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is how Jay-Z operates. If he's not getting a cut of something, he's not going to be involved because he can do that.
Right. So in addition to your agent and the publisher, the subject wants a piece of the action of the book. It's difficult out there for authors.
Right. And from a journalistic perspective, if you're paying a key source in your book, it kind of undermines your integrity a little bit.